Seriously. Even with the bleach. It's just not coming clean. What is happening?
And the next day...
Hey, I'm Margie with the Asking Spot. I've already spent a day trying to clean this, so turns out, yeah, it's just missing grout in a lot of areas. So now I'm going to attempt to re-grout. Using this. Now, one of these tools are very handy, but just the thing to keep in mind is that they don't work like this. It's just one direction. Also, I'm going to be wearing loads of PPE because, yeah, I'm going to be sprinkling up some chips here, and I just don't really want them in my eyes and lungs and, you know. So. Wherever I had grout that was excessively damaged or, completely failing, not a problem getting that out. Gross, but still not a major problem. The floor, likewise. Those tiles between there, that grout came out relatively easily. I don't know if there was a different type of grout or sealer on the wall parts because that's where I ran into a lot of problems. If you have any expertise on that, I would love to hear that in the comments below. And thank you.
Oh, my back!
All right, some tips on how to do some grout. For starters, you need to shake the bag because you don't want, if you're getting a tinted grout, you don't want the pigment colors at the bottom. You want more of an even thing. So it makes sense to shake it. This is a tip that maybe only I need. Don't shake it when you're fully standing and be super careful. Yeah, it slipped out of my hands.
Yikes! That's messed up.
So, anyway, here are some more tips. Prep work is key on these projects. So I have got extra sponges so that I don't have to worry about rinsing them out as fast and using the same one and getting it as damp, perfect set. What this is to rinse said sponges out in. Yeah, it's an old pail, it's on the dirty side, but it's fine. It's got clean water in there. Now, I also have for my tools, I have this piece right here. This is just cool water in there that I can dump the tools in right away so everything doesn't harden, get stuck on them. And then I can also pour the water into the container I use the mix in when everything's all said and done. Of course, having some extra towels on hand doesn't hurt, and it also helps with the buffing process. Weather. If it's warm out, this is going to dry that much faster. You want cooler temperatures, and that includes the water you use to mix it. The cooler water will slow it down because when you use this with the FA in it, the sealer that's extra, that's great, except for it accelerates the drying speed. It shortens the amount of time you have to work with this. So that's why the cool water and cooler temperatures will give you a little more time to work with it. Ideally, you'd want somebody else to work with you so that things can be rinsed out and cleaned out as you go and you can still keep working. When it comes to mixing this, it is basically a 3-to-1 ratio per the package when you follow the full bag instructions. And technically it should be that way if you're going to do a smaller amount. But just remember, that's based on weight. So you're going to put in 3 parts of it, and if you pack it or get it too dry, it's not going to necessarily be, the same amount. So like if you put 3/4 cup of the plaster in or the powder in, and then a 1/4 cup of water, that technically should be right because that's a 3-to-1 ratio. But it's weights. So it's gonna need a little finesse in there. It's better to start with a slightly less water and add more because, it just gets too much. A tip that I've found from other YouTubers was that when you do mix it, you don't want to overmix it because too much air inside of it also speeds up the drying process. And remember, we're working with the FA version, the Ultra, so it already has a faster drying time, and that is going to be giving you a headache if you don't have everything you need and you aren't skilled at what you're doing. So my advice is mix less than you think, and don't, just do it by eye. When you start getting to a pretty creamy consistency, not quite cake batter because there's still going to be some granules in it, that's when you're going to go for it and start using it as a grout.
What a tool.
I'm going to see if I can use it for this. I just wanted something that was more manageable, that fit better in my hand when I'm trying to do this. Now granted, I'm not doing a massive area, so I wouldn't necessarily have to have one of those bigger trowels. I think if I were, yeah, I might stick to that, but just wanted to let you know there are options.
Later.
Once you put it all on and you're wondering when you should start sponging it off, ideally it's when you can tap your finger on it just lightly and nothing comes off. If you tap your finger on it and it leaves a mark, it's still not dry enough, so you need to let it go a little longer. But be careful, if you go too long, you're also going to run into a lot of work trying to get that off, and if the sponge isn't able to come around it, it might not smooth the grout out as much as you'd like, and then you'll have bumpy grout in the end. You want to do a light pass by with the sponge, flip it over, do another side of the sponge and do a different area. How damp does the sponge have to be? Very, very, very lightly. I actually got mine damp by first running my hands in water and then just grabbing the sponge. I never submerged the sponge. That's how light you want it, because you don't want it so wet that it's just going to take all of the grout and get it all wet again and take it all off. So while we're waiting for that final haze to happen, go ahead and click subscribe, maybe give a thumbs up, because this might not have been a how-to, but it was probably definitely a how not to. That's at least what I can hope for, is that I saved you some time. At any rate, once you get it again to a slight haze, then you want to take, I used a shop rag, but you could also use just as easily a lint-free cloth old t-shirt. That would work to just nicely buff off those areas that you don't want the haze to remain. Then leave it to dry. Now it says it's a few hours, you could stand on it. I think for tiles anywhere else in the room, 48 hours would be fine. I wasn't taking any chances. We left ours to dry for at least 72 hours. There you go, the final results. Thanks so much for watching the Asking Spot. Just need to recap. Another thing to note is they do say in the instructions